Before we start, a word of warning. I'm going to be opening up and repairing a mains powered electrical device that will connect to a hot tub that you and your family will sit in. If you're at all unsure, please use a qualified electrician. Better to be safe than sorry. So you're all ready for your hot tub, you're raring to go, on it goes, and just as we expect the pump to fire up, instead we get an E02. So this video looks at how we solve an E02 issue, which is the circulating pump on the Lay Z Spa models. This model is the Maldives model, and as you can see here it's the Hydrojet Pro, so it's a slightly bigger box and pump unit than you get on other Lay Z Spas. So we whiz through taking the cover off here, and we can see straight away it's quite a meaty unit. Unfortunately the circulating pump is buried right at the bottom. Okay, so let's see what we've got. I can see the power lines coming in from under the unit, going into the control box. We need to remove the control box cover next. Of course, at this point we want to make sure the unit's been switched off, and I would recommend you switch it off, disconnect from the mains. Leave it for a few minutes as well. There's a few capacitors that are likely to be lying around. We don't want any nasty little shocks. The wires come in under the unit, so we're going to need to disconnect the main wires from the control unit in any case, so we can further disassemble the unit. Okay, so the control panel there is exposed. Let's see if we can make sense of this. So we've got a wire from the control board, looks like that's going to the main jet, the power jet. Another wire there going to the air pump. Where's this one going? This looks like another power supply. That must be the heater element wire. Got the power to the transformer there. I think that's what powers the circulating pump. Now when I get the error E02, I never hear a noise from the pump, so to me I'm going to jump in there and try and determine whether the control unit's gone or whether it's the pump. So reconnecting the mains temporarily to the unit, I'm going to try and measure the output from the control panel to the transformer, see if we get 240 volts when we turn the circulating pump on through the control panel. So just holding the multimeter carefully against the control unit, and then switching on the control panel and switching on the circulation pump. Okay, that looks good. Nice 240 volts there, and an E02. So that confirms that the control panel is good. It tried to turn the pump on, but the pump just didn't work. The airflow detector detected no flow. So now we've got to try and get access to that pump. So we remove the wire from the chassis to the control panel on the top case. It's just a simple clip, and now we want to try and get access to the circulating pump. So we're going to need to remove the mains wire that's coming in and the wire to the transformer. You can see just about, I'm not sure you can actually see the pump underneath there, but it's underneath the heater element. The chassis will come off of the bottom cover. It's held down by its own weight. We need to remove the mains cable coming in from under the unit to the control unit and to the heating element. The earth wire goes directly to the heating element. Obviously the earth wire is a critical element of the safety of this component. Being water based, you don't want to forget to reconnect the earth wires. Now this unit, this wire goes to the control unit. I disconnected that unnecessarily. We live and we learn. So you just need to connect the incoming earth wire from the heater element, and then you've only got one earth wire to reconnect. So let's move the earth wire to the side, and then we connect the incoming power, which is labelled C1, C1 on the left and C2 on the right on my power, on my unit. Okay, undoing the power supply wires, and now we just have to undo the clips holding the wire to the units. Not sure you can really see the clip under the wires here. 2 screws just securing the cable in place, so we remove that, and then the mains lead is now free. Okay, over she goes. So as I mentioned, the circulating pump, the pump that circulates the water through the heater element and recycles the water constantly through the filter, that's underneath the entire unit. So we now have to remove the bottom from the chassis. Easier to do it on its side. It rests quite nicely on the air filter or air pumps. So nothing else holding it in place. There's a strange little unit there. I think that's an earth testing unit, or just an opening to test the earth. Not entirely sure. It's not connected to anything, so we can just leave it hanging, pull the wire through, and now we can see a potential culprit. So unscrew the little cap on the wire and pull the wire out from the transformer. That's a bit fiddly to get to, you can't quite see that there. It's a 2-pronged little connector, it can go in either way. Now we've got to encourage this little pump unit out. It's held in place by the Jubilee clips and the wires, the pipe work. So we need to loosen off the Jubilee clips. Now these pipes are going to be on there quite solid, they're going to be moulded to the pump, so it's just a case of easing them off. I find it's better to just gently wiggle them. The bottom pipe, I can get more leverage on that. Swivel that out the way, then I can leverage against the case and gradually prise the pump off the remaining pipe. There we go, so remove the unit now and have a quick look at the pump. Now if you've done your research on the internet, it's a impeller type pump, so inside this unit there's a little impeller, so we need to undo the screws so we can get access to the impeller. And there we have it. So the impeller's visible, and it's actually quite stiff. Should have some resistance, but it's a little bit too stiff there. Let's have a look at it. It looks, what is that, corrosion? It's swollen up. Is the magnet corroded and swollen up? Anyway, that's why it's not rotating freely. That's why the pump doesn't work. So, fast forward a week, got a replacement part from eBay. So it's not identical. It fits nicely. It moves freely. I can feel the resistance from the magnet, but it does freely turn. Just check the case fits over the pump correctly, or over the impeller correctly. Yeah, it feels nice. So success. And with this impeller I also got a set of seals. So I'm going to use the new seal for the pump, definitely. There's also seals for the pipe work, if I can get to them. I'll check the seals on the pipe work before we put the whole unit back together, but we'll definitely be replacing the seal on this pump. The replacement parts were only about £15 on eBay. The repair's well worth doing. Replacing the entire pump unit is £500, the last I checked on Lay Z Spa. You know, there's no user serviceable parts according to Lay Z Spa, so this is very much a try and see type repair. It's not a Lay Z Spa part, but it seems to fit. Other people have had success, so let's hope, fingers crossed, this £15 replacement will save me having to replace the entire pump unit. Okay, so gently tightening the screws to begin with, and then alternating across in a kind of zigzag format to tighten up evenly all around the unit. There we have it. So now it's just a matter of assembling back into the unit and giving it a go. Okay, so to reconnect the pump to the main unit, a little bit of spit around the seals just to make it easier, and then gently prise it onto the pipe work and tighten up the Jubilee clips. As you prise the pipe work over the seals, just check that you're not pinching or catching the seal at all. You don't want to end up with leaky pipe work. So once seated nicely, just make sure those Jubilee clips are tight, and then we're just going to pass the wire from the pump through to the top of the unit so we can put the base back. Okay, so now we have the slightly trickier manoeuvre of putting the case or the bottom of the case back onto the chassis. Thread the mains wire through just loosely so it's out of the way and it won't get pinched. We connect that funny little earth testing thing, whatever it is, back on its feet. We're now good to reconnect things. So just making sure it's seated properly. We don't want it lifting up. We don't want any gaps. I can see the earth unit testing thing is not quite seated right, and it's just holding the case up. Okay, that's better. So now put in the little two-pronged lead from the pump back into the transformer. Again, it's fiddly, you can't quite see, but it's got a little screw-on cover. So just push it into the slot and then screw the cover back over it. Okay, good. Just making sure the mains wire hasn't been caught anywhere. Again, we don't want to cause more problems than we already started with. That's just freeing that cable up so I don't inadvertently tighten it up and damage. Okay, a bit fiddly with all of the wires in place. It was easier to unscrew than screw on, but we're now going to screw on the cable cover or cable clip to hold the mains wire in place. Okay, so let's just pull the wire through, pull the earth wire out the way, leave it to the side. Let's connect the mains back to the control unit. Nicely labelled. Hopefully you took a note of the labelling on your unit. I assume the labels are the same on each one. On my unit, C1 and C2. So C1 furthest away from you, as you can see here, and then C2 next to it. Let's put C1 on first. Okay, nice and tight. We don't want to over tighten it, of course. Don't want to ruin the thread, but let's make sure it's nice and secure. C2, repeat the same exercise. Tighten it up, make sure it's nice and securely tightened. So that's everything wired back up to the control unit. Okay, and now we must connect the earth wire back to the heater element. So we need to make sure that the earth wire to the control unit and the earth wire from the mains cable are connected to the heater element with that earth-in loop wired between the two. Absolutely critical to make sure that the earth connections are solid and correct. Now we'll put the cover back on the control unit. Again, just make sure there's no wires being trapped underneath. Check each time. Around the bottom, sides, just make sure everything's freely moving. We don't want to start screwing up, tightening up some wires and pinch a wire. Three screws hold the control unit cover in place. Right, we're getting there, we'll be in the hot tub soon. Okay, just moving on to the chassis cover. Of course, the chassis cover has the control panel, so we need to connect that first. I find it easier just to light on the sides, just so there's no stress on the wire. It's just a push in, you get a satisfying click when it connects correctly. Again, usual caution when we put the chassis cover back on. We don't want to catch any wires, but neither do we want to catch the rubber seals around the inlet pipes. So we just put it on gently, make sure it's seated correctly. If it's not seated correctly, the chances are we've caught one of the rubber seals. And again, we don't want to tighten these up and be pinching one of those rubber seals. Just makes it more awkward the next time. So just whizzing around the unit now, putting the screws back, and we're nearly ready to test. So there we are, one hopefully fixed unit. So now we fill the hot tub back up, we reconnect the unit, and this time we hope when we switch it on we'll hear a satisfying whir and we won't see the E02. There we have it, back in operation, a little bit of time and effort, and £15.